the Cinema Judge!
Hello and welcome to the Cinema Judge. To all my regulars out there, welcome back. Now if you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Now approaching the bench today, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. It's directed by Jeff Rowe and Kyler Spears. But the writers and producers are a really incredible team that we all know that's given us a lot of great comedy. Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. They have a whole new take on this film, especially with the animation, and you're going to hear about that later. But first, here's the tagline for this film. The film follows the Turtle brothers as they work to earn the love of New York while facing an army of mutants. Here's a trailer for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem.
Boys, where have you been?
We're just running errands.
That's it?
Look, we're really sorry, Splinter. Some of the guys wanted to get pizza, and I tried to talk them out of it.
You ratted us out.
Hey, don't use that word that way.
I mean, it's 2023.
Sorry, Dad. Hey, guys, if we weren't monsters that were shunned by society and we could do what we wanted, what would you guys do?
Go to high school. Maybe get a girlfriend.
Can you imagine that?
Not likely. This is insane. Turtle, mutant, karate teens. I want to know everything about you. Our dad is definitely not a giant rat. That makes me feel like he's a rat.
Police are baffled by the recent crime wave led by a superfly.
Nobody's ever seen his face.
Why?
Because he kills everyone who does.
Cool.
No, not cool.
A bit cool.
Can I kick it?
We think out super fun, and then everyone will think we're cool. They'll accept us.
Can I kick it?
He's making a deal tonight under the Brooklyn Bridge.
Can I kick?
Whoa.
Kick.
What the? Y'all some little tortoises, huh?
I can't believe there are other mutants.
You wanna roll with us? Humans are never gonna like us. So we gonna let the mutants rule the earth.
Peoples, they got to go.
Okay, sort of a twist.
We can't stop him.
We gotta try.
6 in the morning, police at my door.
My son, Michelangelo, you have heart. Donatello, you have wisdom. Raphael, you have bravery. And Leonardo, honor.
Enough talk! I dream about fighting every night.
You've got a rage problem, right?
snap.
It's not a problem!
Now, there's a lot of nostalgia tied into this whole spectrum of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When I look back at it, it just seems like they've been around a lot longer than they have been. But then when you really, really look at it, that is kind of a while ago. It just, time moves differently for some reason sometimes when you think of things within your lifespan. And in this next featurette, we're going to hear from the co-creator and original drawer of the Turtles. It's a really fascinating story, because when he starts talking about that, then we're going to hear from Seth Rogen, the director, Ice Cube, and a lot of other people that are in this movie. But if you want to watch the TV version of this, where you can actually see these interviews, see the drawings and everything else, go to bit.ly/cinemajudge. And if you go there, you'll be able to watch this show and then see all these featurettes that we have for you today. Because after this one, we're going to have a couple more too before the interviews start. But I just want to let you know in case you want to watch all the stuff that you're going to hear. But this is a really fascinating look back, if you will, at the history of the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja phenomenon.
The original creation of the Turtles came out of love, passion, and a late night bout of goofiness. I did this drawing of a turtle standing upright with a mask on, nunchucks strapped to his arms, and I put it on Pete's desk and I said, this is going to be the next big thing, a Ninja Turtle.
The animated series came out in 1987 when I was 5 years old. The live-action movie came out in 1990.
I was 8. It was like perfectly geared towards someone my age.
Ninja Turtles is something that all of us have been obsessed with ever since we were kids.
I remember being 4 years old and wanting all of the toys.
Action figures, cartoons, the bed sheets.
I was just kind of obsessed with them. I started taking karate probably because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
How much love was put into their designs and the props.
My dad bought me nunchucks because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Package art and everything about it was like funny and weird and told a story.
They called us and said, would you guys ever be interested in working on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Did we play it cool at all? Or
No. If we can approach it through this teenage lens, really lean into like a coming-of-age version of it. And they said yes.
Like a breath of fresh air.
Jeff was willing to say, like, we have to make this look and feel totally different.
He was like, what if it's animated by teenagers, so to speak?
We put so much work into the visuals, into the artwork.
The style is perfect for this. It's almost like an underground comic. It reminds me a lot of the original stuff that Peter and I did.
It's you and your buddies. It's you and your brothers. It's you and your sister and your brother.
I think a lot of people can relate to kind of feeling like an outsider at times.
This desire to fit in, to be accepted. It's one of the most essential emotions.
The fans are insanely awesome. Whether it be, I love the Turtles so much, I wore the same Halloween costume for 3 years in a row, or I had a really tough childhood, and the Turtles helped me get through that, and that's when it hits you emotionally. Wanting to create, wanting to tell your own stories, and then actually having it happen. It's a dream, and it happened.
I loved the Ninja Turtles. It was like the first thing I was ever a fan of.
It's fun and exciting.
Here I am, 61 years old, and I'm still getting up and drawing comics. Turtles every day.
I love hearing how things start, whether it be a screenplay, book, movie, whatever it is. But when you hear that initial spark from that person who created it, I just, for whatever reason, I'm like, that's how it happened. Because I always wonder about stuff like that. Whether it's like if you're watching an actor, you're like, how did they get there? How did this character happen? So when we're lucky enough to hear from the people that are around and they're still doing what they're doing, but you got to hear that moment, I just made this happen. I just made this drawing, voila. That stuff just, it's fire for me. If that's, it's just great. Now coming up next, we have another featurette. Now in this featurette, you're going to hear from Seth Rogen. In this, I'll put it this way, this movie is just loaded with voice talent. And they're going to talk about them in this featurette. He's going to introduce them, talk about who some of the villains are, and the Turtles. It just goes to show when you have a fun script and a team like this that could bring people together, you could really bring together a fantastic cast. And just listen to this and you'll hear it. You'll see what I'm saying. Check it out.
As long as I can remember, I was a Ninja Turtles fan. We're bringing to life these characters for a new generation, and the cast is really funny.
It's nice, right?
Can I kick it?
Brady Noon is Raphael.
I dream about fighting every night.
We got Micah Abbey as Donatello.
You're fine. Chill.
Nicholas Cantu is Leonardo.
We're really sorry, Splinter. Some of the guys wanted to get pizza and I tried to talk them out of it.
You cannot kick
Jamon Brown Jr. is Michelangelo.
Why did we pick a fruit shaped exactly like my head?
We would record the kids at once. The personalities of the characters came from the chemistry they had with each other.
Who ratted us out?
Hey, don't use that word that way.
I mean, it's 2023.
Sorry, Dad.
Jackie Chan is Splinter. He's incredible.
Anytime you need more, call me.
And Io Adebari plays April O'Neil.
This is insane. Turtle Mutant Karate Team.
I'm excited to lean into the mutant element of it.
We had the designs and then wrote the personalities of the characters to who was cast.
6 in the morning, police at my door.
Ice Cube is Superfly.
Y'all some little tortoises, huh?
Me and John Cena are Bebop and Rocksteady.
What you looking at,
Yeah,
punk?
bro, what you looking at?
Mondo Gecko is played by Paul Rudd.
People's got to go.
Post Malone is Ray Fillet. Rose Byrne plays Leatherhead.
G'day, fellas.
Giancarlo Esposito plays Baxter Stockman. Natasha Demetrio plays Wingnut. Hannibal Buress plays Genghis Frog. Maya Rudolph, Cynthia Utram. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a comedic action movie with heart.
Do you think there are people who will accept us?
No, absolutely not. Genuinely, no.
see what I'm saying? Cast abound, talent everywhere. Now up next, we have another featurette. And this one deals with the kids, or the young men who voice these characters. Because what usually happens in these movies, or has happened, most of the voice actors are older. They're not actually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're adult-aged Ninja Turtles. In this next featurette, you can hear from Seth Rogen, and he addresses that. He wanted to actually have teenagers play the teenagers. And that's a brilliant idea. Why not? Here's a featurette dealing with that situation.
I grew up watching the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the teenage part was always the most underexplored part. I'd always thought it would be really interesting to explore them in that way, especially because, from my understanding, every version of them has been performed by adults. Within 15 seconds of watching the movie, the audience is like, they're teenage boys.
No!
I was freaking out.
It's crazy.
It was a dream come true. It was so incredible.
Why wouldn't you want to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
Leo's the one always trying to keep the brothers on track.
The kid who sees himself as the coach of the team, even though no one else does.
Let's go. I'm Leo.
Mikey, he's the best. His dance moves are better. His weapon is the best. Hey, I'm Michelangelo. Perfecto.
Raphael is aggressive, but he's very loyal to his brothers, and he's got a good heart.
I dream about fighting every night.
You've got a rage problem, right?
It's not a problem.
Donatello is very smart, he's very techie, and calculates every single move he does.
Don't worry, guys. I got this.
Me and all the turtle boys, we got real close.
They made sure that all 4 turtles were filming together.
Let's have 4 people at once talking over each other.
It was like so much more alive.
Okay, we got it. We got it.
We've improvised a lot of the movie.
Just them actually being themselves and going at each other.
Stop it.
That's what you like? You eat that? Oh my God, gross.
All the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are teenagers, but we have adults telling you how to be teenagers. No, they just let us be teenagers.
Hey!
And he'd be like, what did you just say? Riz? Use that in the movie. Explain it to me and then let's use it.
The fact that they're laughing makes me think we shouldn't say that.
It's pretty sick.
1, 2, 3, Cowabunga!
Everyone knows who the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are. I'm awesome.
Every single character someone can relate to. We gangsta.
We outside.
The action and the villains.
Whoa.
It's funny and it's cool and they fight things. It's awesome. Go watch it.
Now, if you're a movie nut just like me, you realize that most of the time, this isn't all the time, but let's just say the high 90% of the time, whenever there's voice actors, usually saying they are never in the same room together. That's what I like about this kind of production. The energy is just fluid. It's cooking. It's moving. It's not a forced or contrived thing where you have to try to find out what the person might have been saying as you read the script and go, well, the person before you said this. This movie, these kids are in the same room together and they're bantering back and forth. And the stories that they talk about and just how they gel together, you're going to hear more about it later on. But that's what sets the movie sometimes apart, makes it feel more authentic to me. Because you're feeling it at that moment. They're talking back and forth. They don't have to try to contrive or think, or it just happens in the moment. Like all of us, when we're with our friends and we're just shooting the breeze, you're just talking all over each other. You know, all that kind of stuff. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's really refreshing that they said, you know what? Let's just throw them in the room and let them roll. That's what I really like about that featurette. Now, up next, this movie's called Mutant Mayhem. Well, we got to have mutants. So in this featurette, we talk about all the mutants.
We wanted there to be tons of mutants. There was this huge well of mutant characters that were kind of underutilized.
Can't believe there are other mutants like us.
And we met with Ice Cube and we said, okay, the character's name is Superfly and he looks like this. Ice Cube laughed and smiled and we're like, I think he's in.
He's a cool supervillain. I'm a cool supervillain. I decided to kill all the humans and let the mutants rule the earth.
That's a take.
The Ninja Turtles kind of get this idea that if they stop Superfly and the mutants, maybe that'll be a thing that proves to people that they're good and that they should be accepted.
It was pretty cool to see Superfly with his crew of mutants. I'm so sorry. I didn't introduce my peeps. Rocksteady, Bebop.
Hey, what you looking at, bro?
Yeah, bro, what you looking at? Mondo Gecko.
People's they got to go.
Wingnut.
Hi,
winglet.
Ray Fillet.
Refillet.
Scumbug.
I got this. I totally got this.
Genghis Frog.
Don't patronize me.
And Leatherhead.
Oh, good night, fellas.
And this idea of kind of like bringing it to this like monster movie type place was really fun and exciting. It's called Mutant Mayhem.
Now, there's one aspect to filmmaking a lot of us overlook, including me. I mean, I do it all the time. I don't even think about it because it just flows into anything you're watching. Production design. And with an animated film, that's elevated even more because there's so many different kind of animation styles. And like I said, we take it for granted. We start watching a movie or a tone, a palette of it. You're like, okay, that's what they're going for this time. But finding that tone, finding that theme can make or break a film. And with this one, they had to find that, but they wanted to be true or authentic to the teenage feel. So in this next featurette, you're going to hear about that. You're going to hear about them try to maintain that. If you remember when you were a teenager and you wrapped your book in paper or whatever you did, garbage bags, you often drew on them. And those drawings weren't necessarily art of the finest nature, but there were those kids though. Those artistic kids that you looked over at their book, you know, and they had that covered in that bag or whatever it was. You're like, are you kidding me? You're a genius. How can you just put that on? Those kind of people all my life have blown me away. I could barely draw a stick, man, and I tried. I had a buddy of mine long ago. He used to draw these action adventure things with stick people. You put it on the bottom of the page and you flip it, you know, like make it look like a cartoon. Anyway, he'd make these explosion action adventures. I tried it, just tanked it. But also, there's people who could also make those drawings that are just magnificent. And you're like, my goodness, man, it's insane. But that's what this next featurette talks about, what they chose to do. And here's a really quick side note, just in case you care. Earlier this week, I was talking to a coworker about this film, and he was saying, you know, I'm not too sure about the animation. I don't know if it works for me. And this guy's several years younger than I am, so he has a different feel, different want. I looked at it, and I'm like, you know what, though? For me, that's what drew me to this even more, because I like this raw, rough, cool design of different shapes, what they're going to talk about this featurette. And this probably doesn't matter at all, but when I first saw the images for this movie and the style, it almost reminded me of claymation or stop motion action. I mean, it's not, but it has that little sliver of watching, like, whatever, like Rudolph or all those ones that were stop motion with puppets and everything. That slight movement style or different, whatever it is. When I first saw these, I'm like, there's a little hint of that. And that's what first drew me in. And with this coworker of mine, he was like, I don't know. And that's what's great. That's what's great about any kind of movie or animation. Some things speak to people and some don't. So in this featurette, that's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss, well, not me, but they are, about the production design and the whole look of the animation.
I think the animation and the flavor of the movie is so original and fresh.
What we wanted to do was create an incredibly fun and engaging version of the Ninja Turtles.
We had this idea that they had to feel like real teenagers.
Turtle boys, actually.
I would say teens.
They need to look like teenagers. They need to sound like teenagers. It's like, what if it's animated by teenagers?
The doodles that you do in the sides of your notebook were taken, extrapolated, and made into the look of a whole movie.
Weird shapes and crazy in perspective. You would reach this point where you're like a little bit more askew and misshapen. Great, it's perfect.
He kept using this term teenage energy over and over again.
Let's go.
Let's
Oh, I'm the leader of the
I'm
band.
Leo.
Can I kick it?
The bigger swings visually that these animated movies are taking, the more excited people seem to be by them.
Now, coming up next, we're going to hear from the director and then Seth Rogen. First, the director talks about just how he came involved with this. When he heard about it, he's like, I would kill to be part of this project. And I love hearing the enthusiasm about that. Not just like, all right, it's just another project, c'est la vie, but just truly that he wanted to make it. And just, that's what really helps everything, making a movie better. But then we're going to hear from Seth Rogen. And he's going to talk about the beginning, how this movie started and just what themes they wanted to go with. Now, if this is the first time that you've ever listened to the show, some of these interviews that you're going to hear coming up, little slivers of them were in some of those featurettes. Because those featurettes are these pre-cut commercials, if you will, lack of a better word, that the studio sends me. And they're about one theme. So they take little slivers of the big interview and make it fit just for that little moment. So when these interviews are happening, you're going to go, wait a minute, I heard part of that. And that's what's going to happen. But you're going to hear the full interview, not just that little snippet. Because as you well know by now, I'm more of a deep dive guy. I like to sit here and just soak all the way into the interviews and hear all about it. I'm not a soundbite show per se, because I want to know all the details. I want to hear the complete interview that they sent us, not just a 5-second blip and go, there you go, decide if you want to see the movie or not. I want all the details. Why do you want me to see this film? What went into it to make this film? That's what I like, just soak in it. So that's what's going to happen next. After I thought of that word soak, I'm like, it probably doesn't fit, but it doesn't matter. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Here it is, soak in this.
I have such nostalgia for it. And then I love Seth and Evan's work. I love their films. It's so funny. I love coming of age stories. I love high school movies. It was a lot of, when I heard that they were looking for a director for it, I was like, that sounds like a dream project. I would kill to do that.
I think a lot of my career has been like intrinsically tied to kind of like the high school teenage genre. And so I'd always thought like it would be really interesting to explore them in that way. And especially because from my understanding, like every version of them has been like performed by adults. And I don't think they've ever had teenagers actually voicing the Ninja Turtles. And to me, yeah, again, as someone who like on Freaks and Geeks, that was always like such a thing that they were trying to like instill is like, I was 16 and I was playing a 16-year-old. Then it was super bad. We tried to cast kids who were like actually like 17 and 18 and like around the age. And so to me, like it was always so fundamental to making a thing about teenagers was to cast actual teenagers if you could. And that, again, like that idea was so like underused in the franchise. And so, so then we got a call. Like that was a thing. That was a conversation we had, and then we got a call. I've known Brian Robbins forever, who runs Paramount and Nickelodeon, and they were like, "Would you guys be interested in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?" And I was like, "Yes." Like if we can kind of approach it through this like teenage lens, like that would be our pitch. Would be to kind of really lean into like a coming of age kind of version of it.
Now, let's just take a breath here, a little pause, if you will, put a pin in it, and let's discuss the massive, massive career of Seth Rogen. Who would have ever thought in a million years, from Freaks and Geeks to this? This guy, producing, writing, directing, you name it. I mean, what he's done, he's just built this insane company, just this film empire, lack of a better word. It's amazing, and he's so young. Who knows what he's going to do in the future? But here's the thing. Not every movie is the same kind of movie. The guy's diverse. He makes different kind of feelings, different kind of stuff. It's not just, hey, it's all going to be raunchy humor or whatever. He could do that with no problem at all. But that's not all he's about. Most stories that he does, there's heart behind it. There's always something real behind it. There's some emotion. And I'm just blown away. I'm happy that he's doing it because look at just some. I can't even begin to name all the stuff he's done. From This Is the End, Superbad, Pineapple Express, Sausage Party, which they're now turning into a TV show, I've heard. I'm not saying that's for sure, but if there's rumors that they're going to make that into a TV show and they're going to go even above and beyond what they did in the movie, I can't wait. Because the guy can write. He knows what he's doing. It's just insanely what he does. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. But he's also in a TV show recently called Platonic on Apple TV Plus. And again, what a great show. And it's not your typical kind of movie that was predictable, if you will. Because it's not. There's things that happen. You're like, oh, this is what's going to happen. You're typical. This is what's going to go down. No, it didn't end up being that way. But anyway, I just wanted to just take a pause in the show just to talk about Seth Rogen and what he has become and I just can't wait to see what he does in the future. But man, could you imagine watching him in a day in the life of Seth Rogen? Now that would be a show I could watch. And I've talked about this a lot in the past. I want to see a show where they show it from the beginning to the end. Show the guy writing a story with his producers or whatever it is, pitching it, taking it places. Because I would love to get behind his mind and just sit down, or even just sit, be a fly on the wall and watch. But to be able to sit and talk to him and just say, wow, how do you keep all this stuff organized? What are you doing next? He would be a fantastic guy just to sit down and talk to. Because something in my head, I'm not saying this is true, but it seems like he's just a normal guy. He's not going to sit there and go, man, I'm so important I can't talk to you. He doesn't seem like that to me. He seems like he'd be sitting there, hey, you want to talk movies? Let's talk movies, man. Let's sit down and let's do this. You know, I could be way off the mark. I don't know any of these people. I'm just sitting here in my basement. But that's how he comes off. He comes off of, hey, if you want to talk movies, TV shows, whatever, let's do it. That's what, it's just amazing what he's done. And it's just awesome. But coming up next, we're going to hear from all the Turtles. We're going to hear from Brady Noon, who plays Raphael, Mika Abbey, who plays Donatello, Saman Brown Jr., who plays Michelangelo, and then Nicholas Cantu, who plays Leonardo. And they just talk about the movie and or what their characters are about. And then we have a clip for you. In this clip, at the very beginning part, there's only music and adventure. So what's happening is this. You see like a wide shot of them jumping on top of the building, cool, powerful music playing, dun 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 dun. And then they zoom in and okay, we have an important mission to go on. And then basically it's a shopping list. But you get to hear them banter and how certain characters are like this or like that. But that's how it starts off. You're like, well, okay, a lot of music, let's have something. That's what that is. It's this build up showing them running building to building, and then the fun banter about getting groceries.
Growing up, I was a fan of TMNT. I watched the 2012 series from Nickelodeon my whole childhood, pretty much. So a lot of that was a big factor into how I took my approach towards Raphael. So that was a big help, and I mean, just being a part of such a franchise that I've loved since I was so young is just such a dream come true.
Donatello is a very intelligent turtle. He's very smart, he's very techie, and some would say nerdy or geeky sort of friend, but he's just one of those people that's more logically, like he's one of those people that is more left-brained than right-brained. Instead of his brothers, a lot of his brothers make certain moves off of instinct or what they think would be right, but Donnie's more of a logical person who calculates every single move he does because he wants everything to be perfect. He's more organized than the other boys. I think Donnie just wants everyone to be enjoying anime and K-pop the whole time and just live in like sort of those super duper tech worlds, like super advanced, like the whole time. Like I think his perfect world is just like the future. Like he just wants to live in the future.
Mikey is the youngest brother out of the four. He is awesome. He's fun. He's funny. The biggest pizza lover, has his nunchucks, does his thing. He's also about family though. And, when the time comes, he's ready to fight beside his brothers always. He's the best. I think he's the best one for sure. I think his dance moves are better. I think his weapon is the best. He's just better in every way. Yeah, Mikey's the best.
Leo's a turtle guy, a turtle teen. He's growing up, and that's the thing with all the turtles in this movie. But I would say the way that he's different from his brothers is that even through all the turmoil of being a teenager, he still sees the end goal of having him and his brothers be this like famous crime fighting team. He still has that dream, and that's like the goal he's working towards. And he's like the most serious, I would say, even though he's still a teenager, so you're always going to be goofy. But he's the one always trying to keep the brothers on track. And he's got a lot of anxiety because of that, I think. Having a leadership position, he's figuring it all out in this movie. So he's just making his way and figuring out what he can do to be the best crime fighting team in New York. given us a very important mission for tonight. The target is across the street. We must use stealth and cunning to infiltrate the human world and retrieve Go-Gurt.
Okay, Batman.
Dude, what? I'm just trying to hype you guys up,
Give me
okay?
that list, okay? What else we getting? 4 quarts of non-fat milk,
Nice.
ice cream, fruits and veggies, and a party-sized bag of Cool Ranch Doritos.
I like cheese
He was very specific about the party size. He underlined it twice.
All right, Donnie, you're on toiletries. Raph, you're stocking up the pantry. And Mikey, you're on junk
Yes,
food.
sirski.
And remember, don't let any human see you. Because why?
Humans
are the demon scum of the earth. Avoid them. Don't say hi. They lust to murder that which is different from them. To interact with them is to die.
And hey, I know that's objectively prejudiced, but that's what Dad taught us.
I think humans seem kind of cool, to be honest. Beyonce.
Drake without humans.
That guy's the goat of all
Love to
time.
have a champagne brunch with Tom
Guy
Brady.
Fieri seems like a fun hang, and I've always wanted to go to Flavor Town.
Look, we all think humans are cool, but we got a job to do. Let's go!
Let's
Hey, I'm the leader of the group. You sound like you have bronchitis.
And I think it was such a great idea to actually have teenagers do the voices, because you could hear that in every scene. You could hear the enthusiasm, you could hear the youth. Up next, we're going to hear from Seth Rogen, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the story. He's going to take a little bit more of a deeper dive into it in both their isolation and being outcasts. And then we're going to hear from the director, kind of talking about the same principle that he was talking about, but in his own little way. And then we go back to Seth Rogen talking about how he really wanted a great mutants, great characters just to bring to this story. And then right after that, we have a clip. And in this clip, the ninjas meet Superfly, the guy that they want to try to stop from doing all this bad stuff. And he's played by the incredibly talented Ice Cube. The guy is just incredible. Everything he touches, gold. Just his energy, it just amazes me. But that's what happens next. We're going to have those interviews and then that clip where the turtles meet Superfly.
The story, essentially, is that we meet the Ninja Turtles, and they have been mutated from turtles into kind of turtle humanoid creatures at a young age, and they have a dad who's a rat creature who has raised them, who was a rat. And yeah, when we find them, they live in the sewers because their father has instilled in them that humanity will never accept them and will hate them, and that they're like monsters basically. And he's taught them martial arts to defend themselves from humans who Splinter, their dad, thinks are evil. But being normal teenagers, they just want to be normal teenagers, and they want to do normal teenage things, and they absorb pop culture, and so they want to do the stuff that normal teenagers do, and they long for acceptance and a normal life, you know? And then they, through meeting this high school girl, April O'Neil, kind of get this idea that if they stop this criminal Superfly who's kind of terrorizing the city, maybe that'll be a thing that proves to people that they're good and that they should be accepted. So it's a very personal motivation for them to take on this big giant villain basically.
It's the Ninja Turtles. These 4 brothers, Leo, Mikey, Donnie, and Raph, live in the sewer. Have lived in the sewer their entire lives. It's dark. It's scary. There's weird noises. It's wet. Their father is kind of overbearing and doesn't trust humans based on this trauma that happened to them in their childhood. And they've become teenagers, and they are getting restless about their life, and they want more. And they see the human world, and they're on the internet, and they're familiar with human culture, and they sneak out into the world and see movies and see things, always from the shadows. They just want to be normal. And for them, that's impossible because they're kind of mutant turtle monsters is how they see themselves. And through meeting their first human friend who they help out, April O'Neil, and seeing her not run away in terror, they concoct a plan that maybe if they help enough people out, if they help out the entire city of New York and stop this criminal that's been terrorizing the city, that maybe everyone would accept them and embrace them, and they could finally get what they wanted. So they they go on that journey, and it doesn't go as they expect.
We wanted there to be tons of mutants in it. And when I was a kid, I collected the toys and I loved them. And it was one of the things in the cartoon that they always had so much of. There were so many mutants, and there was Mondo Gecko and Ray Fillet and Scumbug and all these characters that existed in toy form a lot in my childhood when I remember them, and they would pop up like from time to time on the cartoon, but never were in like the movies as I saw them. To me, like there was this huge well of mutant characters that were kind of underutilized, and also, you know, I think we were just also trying to like really come up with ideas that hadn't been done before, and this idea of kind of like bringing it to this like monster movie type place was really fun and exciting, and kind of like a cool convergence like of these worlds of like mutants and humans, and to kind of like just we were just like, how do you make that collide in like as fantastic a way as possible, you know?
Yo, come on, y'all. Let's get the goods. Yo, what? What the? Y'all some little tortoises, huh? Look at you. Y'all adorable, man. Bad Bernie got some turtles on the payroll.
No, what? We don't work for Bernie. We're here to find you.
I can't believe there are other mutants like us.
This is wild. I mean, this is crazy. Like, let me guess. 15 years ago, right? Some sludge was dumped in the sewer, and y'all came from that.
Well, we prefer the term ooze, but yeah.
It's like more like, it's just nicer.
It rolls off the tongue better, yeah.
Ooze. It's nice, right?
Ooze. I like that. I like ooze. So look. That same ooze made me, okay? My dad, Baxter Stockman, he's the one who dumped the ooze down the drain, baby. So technically, we cousins.
Oh, you're related.
What up, cuz?
Cousins. That's have no immediate other than I've always wanted a cousin.
Well, look at you now. You got a bunch.
Now, earlier in the show, we talked about all the kids being in one room recording. Now, we're going to hear from Seth Rogen and the director talking about that. In this interview with Seth Rogen is just magic to me. It's like, again, that little sliver of time, this is how this came about. Or they were already doing it, but when they knew, they were dialed in. And it was just him being now, and this is kind of funny too. He's kind of a younger man, Seth Rogen, not young man. You know what I mean? He's younger, but now he's on the older end of these younger kids that he's directing, because he used to be on that end on Freaks and Geeks. But here in the story, he talks about, I went to go get coffee, and I came back and I was listening to the banter. You know, all that kind of stuff. It's just fantastic. And then immediately after that, we're going to hear from the director, and he's going to talk about how it came about too. So it's just really fun for me to hear both these people, him the director, Seth Rogen being the producer, them sharing this room, and then this stuff happens right in front of them. And they realize, wow, we got it. We know what we're doing now. These kids have the energy. We chose wisely.
My first desire was to have the kids record at the same time. And that was like a thought I had, was like, we should just try to have them all in there together. And it was going fine, I remember, the first day. And then I remember, like, we took a break and we were in the recording studio, and they were all in the recording studio we were in. They had like this tiny little banquette, like a booth, like a little tiny booth, like a restaurant booth. And they were all four of them, like crammed into this booth, and they were just like, bah, 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 oh, you did this shot, oh yeah, bah, 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 bah. That's what you like, you eat that, oh my God, gross, he eats that. And it was like, and I remember like going in to get a coffee or something and seeing them in there and being like, oh, like, that is funnier than anything we've done in the last like 2 hours. Like just them like talking and actually being themselves, just like going at each other and trying to interrupt each other and all that stuff. It was so funny. And I remember going back to Jeff and being like, this is what we have to do. Like that energy they have is like, that's what we have to capture. And it's honestly so hard. Like these recordings are not set up to have people overlapping each other and talking at the same time. And like, it is not how it's designed. And it took us several sessions to like build a situation where they could actually like fully interact in the way that they would.
With this, it was just, we eventually threw the script away and would just have them like, I don't know, what's a funny thing? What would you actually want? What would you actually listen to on the radio? And the kids would just make up stuff, and they would talk about things that they were passionate about. And And the personalities and we ended up writing to that. Like the personalities of the characters as you see them on screen came from that improvisation and from the chemistry they had with each other. And it was so much, we couldn't have written it. There's no way. The bacon, egg, and cheese scene in the film is like, Seth described it as like, that's comedy that I would describe as unwritable. Like, it only works because they just did it and they just went off on a riff together.
Now, every once in a while in a movie, you're thinking about who can I cast for this role? Who would I like? There's that dream person, or, well, if we can't get them, we'll go this, we'll get this. In this next interview, it's just wonderful. You hear from Seth Rogen, and, he's a big deal. I mean, he's a really big deal. But hearing him gush over Jackie Chan being in this movie, and that his wife brought it up to him, she's like, well, because you're hearing this. This is a really fun interview, by the way. He talks about how much of a huge fan he is of Jackie Chan. Well, I mean, who isn't? But hearing it from somebody at his level, still being thinking, no, he won't do this movie. Come on, he's Jackie Chan, man. That's insane. So hearing him gush over somebody, which who wouldn't? And then about how he gets up early in the morning because they had to record his voice, but different time zone. But how excited he was. Hey, I got to get up at 4 a.m. I don't care. I'm thrilled. It's just a really great interview because getting somebody like Jackie Chan to do this, I mean, that's pretty incredible. That says a lot about your script and the power of you being a producer. That says a heck of a lot right there. And then after that interview, we're going to hear, or not, I shouldn't say hear, we're going to hear a clip. And what happens is the ninjas go home and then they start talking to their dad, the rat, because he's like, hey, what took you so long? So when you hear that voice, that's Jackie Chan talking to the Turtles.
I think Lauren, my wife, was the one who suggested Jackie Chan. And I think, it was an idea that, I dare not even have thought of. And she knows I'm obsessed with Jackie Chan. And she, I imagine, suggested it because she was sitting next to me, on the couch as I was, watching, my 500th Jackie Chan movie over the months, of the pandemic. And, literally, I don't think I've seen every Jackie Chan movie because there's a lot of them, but I've seen, I'd say, almost all of them, and I truly think he's the greatest living comedian, and I think he's a marvel. I put him in the category of Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin. He is not only funny, but he is physically capable of things that are elusive to most, and then the idea of Jackie Chan came up and it was oh my God, that would just be absolutely perfect. And it did seem like a real long shot, but he said yes. And he recorded all of his stuff over Zoom, and I sat in on every one of the recording sessions, and I would wake up at 4 a.m. and it would be, and I'd be so excited when the alarm went off. And it was really a dream come true, honestly. And the fact that I got to work with him at all, and as soon as he started, we were this is perfect. He's so good. It's so amazing. Yeah, it's so paternal. It's stern, but funny and sweet and vulnerable. But he has kind of an instructive presence to him, but he also is, very warm. And it's it's one of those things where after you hear him do it, you're oh, there's nobody else that could have done that.
Boys, where have you been? I've been freaking out.
We're sorry, Dad. It was this one thing. It was this cat, and I'm scared of cats, so...
Yeah,
we did have to
Wait a second. You said you would go shopping, then come right back. Where were you?
There's nothing.
Look, we're really sorry, Splinter. Some of the guys want to see a movie and I try to talk them out of it.
Leo! Are you
What? You watch a movie with a human? Ugh.
You ratted us out.
Hey, don't use that word that way.
Sorry, Dad.
Now, here's something I've always thought of. Whenever these artists out there, whether it be songwriters, movie makers, cartoon drawers, whatever it is, those real artists out there, people who really create stuff, this is what I've always pondered. They're going to make your story, your idea, into a movie, TV show, what have you. How does that feel, giving up your child, basically? I know it's not the same thing, people. I'm not trying to say that. I'm saying metaphorically, or whatever word I'm trying to think of. You created whatever it is you created, and then you give it to somebody, trust them to make it. Is that difficult? Is that hard to say, okay, I'm letting go? because you know they're going to take their own little creative license with it. It's not going to be exactly like how you had it. So in that vein, we're going to hear from the co-creator, Kevin Eastman again. And he talks about when he heard Seth Rogen and company were going to take this on themselves and how excited he was because he was a fan of him. And that must be really fun knowing my thing that I created is very good hands. Because as we all know, there's been many versions of the Turtles throughout the years since he created this. And I'm sure some of them are better than others in his mind. Who knows? He's a professional. He's not here to say anything. But hearing him here talk about he was just stoked that he was going to take it and do what he thought with it, and he liked it. I just love that because, again, that doesn't happen all the time. There are artists out there who've made something like from authors, and then they make it into a movie, and they're like, what did they do? They butchered my baby. It's not anything like what I had in mind. All that jazz. So it's good to hear when somebody says, I can dig it, and I like it. And then after that, we're going to hear from the director, talking about seeing this on the big screen and just how this movie should be seen. And then after that, we're going to hear from the co-creator again, Kevin Eastman, just talking a little bit more.
When Nickelodeon first mentioned that Seth Rogen and his crew was interested in doing a turtle project, I was absolutely pumped, thrilled, and not only being a longtime fan of Seth Rogen, I love his style and sense of humor. It's kind of my style, a little snarky, kind of sarcastic at times, and very in your face at other times. And I always felt that the humor elements of the Turtles is just as important as the martial arts stuff. So I was excited to see what he saw and what his crew saw as a vision for the movie. And it's big and loud and proud and awesome, and it's all them. You can see it just from the trailer alone. You can see that these guys nailed it.
It's a comedy. It's so fun to enjoy in a room filled with people and to just laugh in a crowd. And we put so much work into the visuals, into the artwork. It really looks its best on a big screen. And I wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to see it play big. We've put a lot of work into the sound too, like good sound. It's going to sound great. It's going to look great.
When the fans see this movie, I think, I feel like from what I've seen, and actually the response that I've gotten from some of the conventions and stuff I've done now, is that it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to take them to a place that they either remembered when they were growing up, what they loved about the Turtles, or if they're a new fan, take them to a whole new place to discover these Turtles. But I think it's going to be a great adventure, a great story, and a lot of fun. And I think they're going to walk out like high-fiving and cheering.
Now, that's a pretty good endorsement from the creator. I mean, he could say, yeah, it's okay, but talking about walking out high-fiving, that's high praise for the film, in my mind. If I made the film and I had to approach him, I go, what do you think? And he says that, I think I'm doing okay. Now, I hope you enjoyed our in-depth look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, any way to improve the show, please let me know. cinemajudge@hotmail.com. Or if you just look up Cinema Judge on most podcast platforms, I'm there. But also, if you look up The Cinema Judge on Instagram and Threads, or go to Cinema Judge on YouTube, Pinterest, Tumblr, Hive, Mastodon, TikTok, and the Metaverse. If you ever go to Horizon Worlds, just look up Cinema Judge. Or one of the places I float around in is Ace of Clubs, laser tag. It's a blast. You float around and you laser tag each other. It's a great time because I can't grow if I don't know. But now this is one of my favorite parts of the show, where I say thanks to you, the listeners, who listened to the last episode. But you might say to yourself, hey dude, I listened to some of your old episodes. Why don't you give me a shout out? Well, that stuff's impossible to see because it's just impossible. So if you listen to the last episode, this is what I do. I always just say shout out to you guys because I love hearing how you listen to this show. Whether it's you just driving in your car. I have a lot of listeners who use this for long road trips that they have to take for business or work or whatever they have to do. They just put it on and let the episodes play. I really appreciate that. Or some of you just doing chores around the house. Or just at work on a break, whatever it is. But some of you might listen months, years from now. And that's totally groovy too. Because that's what we're all about here. We just want to share movies with you. We're not here to yell, cry, criticize people, Hollywood, anything like that. There's enough noise out there. All I care about is teaching you and me about a movie. I want the facts. I'm the judge, you're the jury. I give you the evidence, and you make up your own mind. I would never tell you not to see a movie, because any movie is somebody's favorite movie. Because we all want to spend our hard-earned money wisely, because we want the same thing. An enjoyable movie experience. It's that simple. So wherever, whenever, or whatever you're doing, this is for you. And to all the diversity here, all over the world, you guys are nuts. I love it. Well, nuts in a good way, mind you. United States, so many from Germany. Thank you, Germany, for listening. Same thing with Canada, the Netherlands, Finland, Denmark, United Kingdom. That is just great. I just love it. People all over the world listening to this show. You have no idea what that means to me. From Minneapolis, Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota, Stillwater, Minnesota, Camden, Apple Valley, Minnesota. Okay, now I'm going to have to spell this one out for you because there's no way I'm going to get this right. Bjaeverskov, Zealand. And in South Holland, Whitehorse, Yukon, Helsinki, Marburg, Hesse, Hesse, Frankfurt am Main, Hesse. I think it might be Hesse. I always say Frankfurt am Main, Hesse. Amsterdam, North Holland, Dalton, Illinois, Invergrove, Minnesota, Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Joplin, Missouri, Denver, Colorado, Valencia, California, North Bergen, New Jersey, Des Moines, Iowa, Duluth, Minnesota, Greensboro, North Carolina, Fort Collins, Colorado, Tampa, Florida, Brampton, Ontario, Portland, Oregon, New York, just to name a few. So seriously, guys, thanks for sharing the show. If you are, I am indebted to you, and that means a lot to me. Because like I said, all I care about is finding out about a movie. Because sometimes there's those little gems out there that you might say, I would have never thought of watching this movie. And that happens to me all the time. After I hear interviews from maybe a smaller film, I'm like, dude, I got to see this. That's our goal here. But now it's time for the bourbon shout out. This week, it's going to go out to Joe. Now, Joe is a friend of mine. He's no longer with us. But last night, he kind of came to me in a dream. And it was just a fun dream. And it was comforting, for lack of a better word. So to you, Joe, I miss you. And I wish you're here with us because I would love to have you on this show. That was like my big goal after you left us, that I should have thought of this earlier and have you come on the show. Because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the most honest person you'll ever hear. I could bring him something I made or something. He'd be like, nope, that's no good. Or whatever. Or say, yeah, that's really good. He was an incredibly unique person. So to you, Joe, cheers. But now it's the music section. This is a section where I tell you what I was listening to when I was making the TV version, which becomes this podcast. Because when I'm doing a TV version, I don't have to worry about anything. I'm not talking. I'm not doing anything because I'm not on it at all. All I could do is sit there and edit and edit and edit. I just engulf myself in it. I'm in a total happy place. I have the movie and I have music. Put those bad boys together and I'm just sitting in my happy place, like on a little cloud. And every once in a while you go, what am I in the mood for when you're editing a certain kind of movie or whatever? For whatever reason, I was in the mood for Chicago. So I played the very best of Chicago. And I just love that one because it goes from the beginning of their career to later. And that road trip that they took from a lot of horns and all that kind of era of the 70s, and how it graduated to a different sound later on. And it caused a lot of tension in the band, obviously, and then things went poof, and then things altered again. But listening to that, the very best of Chicago, if you ever have time, give that a go, because man, they had some hits, just one after another. But then I shifted gears a little bit. I'm like, well, now I felt like Leonard Cohen. And my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never listened to Leonard Cohen, do so. He has an incredible catalog, and it's deep, dark, just fantastic songs. I mean, there's some fun ones too, I'm not saying that. But man, that guy, his pipes, he could just sing a song. And again, though, it's funny listening to how he evolved throughout the years, from the early days to before he passed. Just how he structured a song and just everything about him, amazing. If you ever have a chance, Leonard Cohen, brilliant. Well, that is it. My glass awaits. I'm thirsty. Cheers to you and to the movies. So till next time, be well, be good, and I'm gone. I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to The Cinema Judge.